I'm Scott Fisk, and welcome to this tutorial on how to use Dreamweaver to make a basic web page. So let's get started. This is the web page that we're going to create. I put this together really quickly just as a demonstration for you in Photoshop, and I used some stock images off the internet to create this. So this thing's broken up into a few basic parts that we need to make note of. This is the main container that holds everything together. This is our header. This is going to be our nav. This is our main image. And last but not least, this is our footer. And what I did, just to speed things along a little bit ago, I copied and pasted this one little logo out and saved it into a folder using Save for Web. And I did the same thing with this image. So we are now ready to go into Dreamweaver. So let's move into Dreamweaver at this point. I'm in Dreamweaver. I'm going File, New. I'm on blank page, HTML, layout none, so this is just a blank web page. We're going to code everything within Dreamweaver from scratch. Hitting create. Going to get started by clicking on Insert Div. Clicking on the little plus here, and this is where we name this div. I'm going to put in main container, click plus. And now it's asking me to select a source, and we want to say create a new CSS file. And now it's asking me where to create the CSS file. I'm going to click browse, and of course I'm going to save this in my folder, which is called test1. And I'm going to call my style sheet file style sheet 1. I'm going to hit save. So now our style sheet file is set up and ready to go. So now our style sheet file is set up and ready to go. If I click on this file, or this div box, which is going to hold the whole web page in place, I can modify its settings over here on the right side of the screen under CSS Designer. I can click on the style sheet, and then I can click on the main container here, and then I can start selecting the parameters for this. And this web page is going to be 960 pixels wide, fixed pixel count, and the margin, this is tricky, I'm going to put it on auto and auto, which center the box. Okay, so that is all set up. And at this point, I'm going to select over that text that's in there down here at the bottom. I'm going to erase that. And now I can go back up to the top and say insert div, and I'm going to insert my header. And at this point, I'm going to just say new CSS rule. And this takes me into a new spot. It's just asking me what I'm going to name that div. And then down here, it's asking me where to put all the CSS. And we don't want it to be this document only. We want it to go into the style sheet file. So make sure you don't forget that. Put it in the style sheet file. I'm hitting OK. And this is pretty much the same sort of, gives you the same sort of CSS controls as this area over here under the CSS Designer. And the very first thing I'm going to do is just scroll down. And I'm not going to put a width in, although I could put in 960 if I wanted to. I don't need to because it's going to automatically expand out full width. I am going to go ahead and put in a height, and that height would need to be approximately as tall as we think this is right here. That space right there. So what I could do to find that out, I could open up that image of that logo that I saved out a little bit ago. And I can go to image, image size, and my height on this in pixels is 118. So it needs to be at least 118 pixels tall. I'm going to make it just a hair taller. I'm going to say 130. And just so I can sort of see what's going on within that box, I'm going to go ahead and change the box color, which is right here. I'm going to put in a tone so I can tell what's going on. And I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK. And there it is. There's the box for our header. Don't need that text anymore. It doesn't serve any purpose. So at this point, just to kind of summarize, we have our main container, which holds everything in place. We have our header, right here, highlighted. And next we need to insert our nav. So I'm going to say insert div, a nav, click on new CSS rule. It is selected on style sheet there, which is great. Hit OK. And for my height, I'm going to put in 35. And I'm going to put in a background color. It's a little bit different from the last one, so we can kind of see what's going on. Okay. And at this point, I need to make smaller columns to control the placement of my buttons. So I'm going to remove these, this text here. Make sure my cursor is in the right place. I'm going to say insert div. And I'm going to just call this nav call 1. And this is where you need to start doing a little bit of math, because the width of those columns, there's 4 columns, that would be 960 divided by 4. Which totals 240. So I'm going to put in 240 on the width. And again, I'm dropping that background color in there just so I can see what's happening with that box as I drop it in. But okay, there it is. And this is handy. I could click on that box and then copy, paste, paste, paste 4 times. And notice how they're not side by side like they should be, like I'd like. So what I'm going to do is go over here. When I click on one of these, it automatically selects it over here in my CSS Designer. And we need to tell it to float left. And that floated all of them to the left. I have one extra one in here. I don't need 5, I need 4. So I can remove that, and now we have 4 perfect little areas for our buttons. I'm just putting this in here as placeholder text for now. So our buttons are now in there. And if I wanted to indent or kind of push the buttons over a little bit, because they're a tiny bit cramped, I could add a little bit of padding to them right here, which pushes them over. Actually, instead of adding padding, well, this is one of those tricky things. I need to change the width of these boxes if I am going to pad this. I'm going to take the width down a little bit, which gives me more room to actually do the padding like that. There we go. So that looks a little bit better. Now after our nav, we need to insert, which is right here. We're going to insert another box, which is going to be called main graphic. And all I'm doing to this one is just adding a background color to it. It doesn't need to have anything else applied. And shortly, here in a little bit, I'm going to add the image to that. So I am now behind my main graphic image, and I have one last div to insert, and that's my footer. Changing the background color on it. Adding a height. Now I can go back, and I have all my basic boxes in place. I can go back into my I'll start at the top just to keep this simple. I'm going to go into the header here. I'm going to insert image, and we're putting the logo in. There's the logo. That logo, of course, needs to be spaced over a little bit, which we can do very easily in the header. So I have my header area selected, and to sort of space that over a little bit, it's rather easy. We can just add the gotta make sure the right thing's selected here, so I'm selecting on just the header. And this pads it over so it moves to the middle. And at this point, I'm not going to do anything else with that header. So I might as well go ahead and remove the background color, which is in there. Right there. And to remove it, I shouldn't change it to white. It's easier actually just to remove it. Simplifies the code a little bit. And then it goes to white. Moving down to the nav area here. I click on selecting my main nav area. I'm going to remove that color too because it's good to go. And I'm going to highlight my individual nav columns, which have colors applied to them. And moving down, we have our main graphic area. Removing the text. Now all I have to do is insert that image. And then moving down to the bottom, our footer text goes here. This would be something pretty straightforward. Copyright. In the center of this, it's actually pretty easy to do. I just need to make sure that my footer div is selected. And then over here, I can go find the center text button, which is right there. And it should push everything into the center. Of course, we still need to drop the color out. That no longer needs to be applied. Right there. And the only thing we haven't done, we haven't changed our color. It looks like our logo at the top is padded a little too much, so we need to fix the padding on that. So let's change our fonts and let's fix this logo that's being pushed over too far. Let's look through our code here. I've selected my header. Just for troubleshooting purposes, I'm going to go ahead and add the background color back to my header because I want to see what that looks like. Yeah. So the key here is to make sure that you're selecting on the right thing. So here's the padding, which needs to be pulled over a little bit. And I can go back to my background color. This is a nice thing too. You can kind of scroll through quickly on all these selectors, all these little areas, and just be looking for the color change. And there it is. And at that point, it's fixed. Like that. Okay. Last thing we need to do is change our font, which is really pretty straightforward. Doing typography in Dreamweaver works rather nicely. I could go into the main column area. I'm just selecting on this little area. And then down here we have some font options. Here are our different sort of built-in font options, and I'm looking for the Gil Sans one. There we go. That applied to all of them. Of course, if we wanted to change all of our link colors, background colors, all we have to do is click on Modify, Page Properties. I did have to click down here in the open white space, Modify Page Properties. And I can go in and I can change my link colors. It'd be nice to use the eyedropper and kind of pull something in from the existing image. And of course, to make this a link, you just drop in google.com, and you'll see that should go to green, light green color. So that's it. Thank you for spending your time learning about Dreamweaver. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you. Bye-bye.